us straight to public participation, and I'd like to invite Evan Smith and Kyle Sutherland from the Avon Otakaro Network to talk to us about activating the Otakaro Avon River Corridor. And Peter Beck as well. Former councillor Peter Beck at the other end of the table. Thank you.
Good koutou. I'm Evan and Kyle Sutherland to my left and Reverend Peter Beck on my right. Peter's here in support. Kyle and I will talk mainly on issues relating to Avon Otakaro Network. So welcome to 2016. We thought we'd 19. Get in 19. God, I'll just go now. We thought we'd get in first this year. Start the year off with a discussing what our priorities are for 2019, and with the hope that maybe you'll be able to support those priorities yourselves. And that priority for us, the main focus, is actually activating the evolving metropolitan asset, which is the Otakaro Avon River Corridor. For most of the last 7 to 8 years, as you'll be aware, the red zone's been a no-go zone, a no man's land of despair, destruction and demolition, where communities disintegrated and disappeared or were divided into two. But over the course of the last 2 to 3 years, the land has been largely vacated, cleared and greened, albeit in grass, but with the retention of a lot of valuable trees, shrubs, natives and fruit trees, and some large exotics. However, the council reserves roading, riparian margins that lie within the red zone, about 30% of the land area, have understandably not been a priority for maintenance. So I'll just turn this off. As no one knew what would become of the land and what the future uses would be. However, that planning situation has now changed. We have a draft regeneration plan that's been finalised, ready to go to the Minister. That speaks to a green spine and 3 major reaches running through the corridor. And it presents a vision which is very closely aligned with the Avon vision that we've had for the last 7.5 years for a multi-purpose river park that runs from city to sea. And we also have now the possibility of leasing Crown land from LINZ for up to a period of 5 years. So that has changed the whole dynamic of what can happen now in the red zone. In partnership with many others, including council in significant roles, we have worked to activate the corridor for the last few years, but increasingly recently. And our intention there is to re-engage and reconnect people with the lands and the river. We did that with events such as Spring River Festivals. We've had 2 of those. River of Flowers has been over 7 different ceremonies over the consecutive years. Matariki in the zone, there's been 3 of those, and we now collaborate with some of our partners in the red zone in delivering that. The last one, we had 500 people there with No Tuariri putting on a hangi for us. And we intend to do that and grow that this year as well. And the big event for us each year, is for the last 2 years and this year as well, is Meet in the Middle, the event we have at Kerrs Reach. And we had over 5,000 people there last year, wonderful event, very family orientated. Just as an aside on that particular event, just as something that, just to make you aware of some of the issues we have, we are planning now for that event in October this year. In order to book the artist, we have to actually commit ourselves to $20,000 of funding, which we don't have grant funding for and won't have confirmation of until September. So I end up personally bankrolling that 20 grand for that period. If there was some way that we could find of some mechanism to enable that to happen without it being a personal risk to somebody's personal finances, that would be very useful. But it's about how funding works. But that's just an issue to raise with you. To make these things happen, we have to commit that far ahead. But there's no way of doing that under the current funding arrangements. So I finished with that aside. We also have, as you'll be well aware, done quite a few different things with the river trail along the river with your help that was instituted, and we've done some work with you on putting wayfinding signs back up in the red zone, and we're working currently with LINZ to put gaps on all the wire fences with white posts there, so that invites people to actually go and enjoy the land. At the moment you can't get over the fences, particularly if you've got a baby or a pram, but just to make it a lot more open and accessible for people. We're also, as you're probably aware, been installing commemorative assets along the corridor. Put the piece of the Medway Bridge back last October, and this 22nd of February we're putting the Thanks for the Memories exhibition that was down at Worcester Boulevard into Retreat Reserve with a little ceremony on the 22nd, and other commemorative memorial things and heritage elements are being introduced as the year rolls out. You'll also be aware of some really good community garden initiatives in the red zone with Richmond that's growing and wonderful asset that has got a lot of community involved and has really been really good at strengthening that community. There's also one at Wainoni Church that Betty Chapman runs. We're also doing work with Life and Vacant Spaces in East Burwood, another activation area. There's a pump and jump track there, and just recently LINZ has approved over to Takaro Forest Park, who will be leading most of the natural restoration work now, to be able to plant on LINZ land with plant natives there, and they're just preparing it now between Corsa Stream and Brooker Ave. So there's things starting to happen. And in terms of native restoration projects, you'll be aware of our one in Anzac Drive Reserve, the Mahinga Kai Exemplar. This was a partnership which is quite unique between central, regional, local government. All were involved, iwi, universities, schools and communities, and we all share the strategic plan for that project. That was very hard took 2 to 3 years to achieve, but it gave us a lot of lessons about how can we do this on a much wider scale throughout the corridor, and we learnt a lot of lessons from that. What we achieved in that over the course of the last 4 years is that we've planted out 12% of the 11 hectares there in native plants, over 7,000 native plants. 6,500 voluntary hours went into planting and maintaining. 1,500 hours of paid coordination and caretaking has gone in there. Over 35 events, 5 of them major planting events. We also used the Mahinga Kai Exemplar as a learning experience outside the classroom amenity. We used $22,500 worth of Unlocking Curious Minds funding last year through MB to create an investigation inanga resource, which was a plug-and-play program for primary schools that was delivered in the school, and then they come out in the field. And this here is the kids actually looking at the whitebait eggs, and they get to understand the water cycle, the tidal cycles, and the life cycle of the whitebait, the iconic Mahinga Kai species in the Avon. They all be able to tell their parents exactly what happens, and they have a very good knowledge of it, and it's amazing just how quickly they pick it all up. Even preschoolers go there. 3 to 5 year olds also really enjoy going there, and so we have preschools going along for visits. Mainly local schools, one school from the west side of town and also Tuahiwi School all came along to that. We're currently extending that with Ngaitahu and Ngautaruri's help into an even bigger plug-and-play program, which is around the concept of Mahinga Kai, what it means, and then inanga are used as the flagship species within that. And that's been written with Ngautaruri and Ngaitahu, and Probably won't be delivered this year because we're a bit too late for the spawning season, but it'll be delivered as a package next year. And we use Sean Cavell, our education consultant, who is also contracted to council for all of that work. Very professional, and has worked with us for about 3 years now on those things. It doesn't mean to say, though, in Anzac Drive Reserve we don't have challenges. We do run into problems with weed management, with maintenance, with security, access and safety. As soon as the site looks unlooked after and unloved, then we have issues with people stealing stuff from their assets like makukapa sleepers and things like that. As you can see, we've had support from the community board and cleaning up and things like that, and sometimes we're mowing it ourselves and we're having to hire very large mowers to try and chop down that grass. So maintenance of the reserve, this is council reserve land, we've just been negotiating this last week actually, that we can have this put back onto a fortnightly schedule so that we can actually have the lawns maintained. We are maintaining them elsewhere ourselves, and then quite cheaply, and then invoicing the council for that work. So there's different ways that it can be done. These activations of the red zone have been highly successful. We did a census last year in August over a 2-hour period on a cloudy Sunday afternoon, and we counted over 500 people using the red zone for recreational use during that period. We used the Emergent Leaders University of Canterbury students to do that for us. What we aim to do is to increase the number of people. If we do the same thing in 2 years' time by a factor of 10, we'd like to see 5,000 people using the red zone in a 2-hour period. Just over those recent holidays, anecdotally, I've heard from quite a few people that I know that have had visitors in Christchurch, both domestic and international, that they've taken out into the red zone and taken along the trail, and their feedback has been absolutely exceptional. They see probably the asset there probably more clearly than most of Christchurch sees it, I think. I want to just talk briefly about the need. Why is this? It's not just a nice to have, it's a lot more than that. As you're probably aware, in many of the schools, particularly in the east, there's over a 70% clinical diagnosis of PTSD in the kids. That's horrendous. We owe it to these kids, to their teachers and their parents, to do all we can to help them heal. And the one way that we can do that more than anything else is to use the asset that's right next door. When they get their hands dirty, when they go out and enjoy the countryside, explore, they actually understand the environment a lot more. They feel at peace with it, and they don't fear it anymore. And a lot of that stress dissipates. So it's really important. We can do stuff that's very cheap and easy to do to help those kids, work with those kids in the schools to use the red zone for this as a valuable asset. That's what motivates us a lot. So for many years the red zone has been considered a problem, the hazard. We need to turn it on its head and see it as part of the solution now. And that means that we need to look at realising that potential as soon as possible. We can't wait for the regen plan to be delivered in another couple of decades. We can start doing stuff now, which is very easy to do. But we can do it, we have to do it smartly, cheaply, and grow it gradually, and then allow the plan to unfold and evolve as time goes on. We've given up using the word transitional. It's tainted by perceptions of ephemerality, temporariness, and lacking real value. Funders don't like investing in things tagged transitional anymore. We therefore prefer the term evolutionary, as it's about establishing more and more substantive stepping stones to the future and learning as we go. Now I'll pass over to Kyle.
We do have a little bit of a time issue, so but I'm going to allow some flexibility. Okay. We're over 10 minutes already.
Cheers. We are focusing on two primary areas of the Otakaro Avon River Corridor for initial activation. So we've got Richmond and Burwood East, and then we hope to extend into other areas as we go. So in Richmond, the network has projects implemented or in the pipeline with Cultivate Christchurch, Revolution Cafe, Richmond Community Garden, Avery House, Tiny House Village, Arts Corner, Riverbend Refuge, Nature Play, Cassaday Bambini Forest, Dimagin's Heritage Garden, Banks Have School Kids Project, and all tied together as a kids adventure trail with swings and trees along the route. In Burwood East, in collaboration with Life in Vacant Spaces, there are plans for similar clusters of activities: jump tracks, model car tracks, drone flying, natural restoration projects at Anzac Drive and Brooker Ave Red Zone, and the planned Christchurch City Council regeneration of Donnell Park. To maximise the potential of these initiatives, we need Christchurch City Council to come to the party on some matters, and we need clear strategic direction from you, the governance team, of the importance of this and the regeneration of not only the East, but of a stunning, evolving metropolitan asset. We understand that there isn't a lot of money to do this, and we must make the most of what we have. And with that, we want to work smart and strategically. It is in the spirit we come here today, not to alert you to expensive investment, but to ask that you work in partnership with us to prioritise activation of the Otakaro Avon River Corridor by identifying and acting on smart, strategically targeted interventions. There are pathways through Anzac Drive Reserve that are key to activating Burwood East and connecting to the river trail. We need these to come back into regular mowing schedules. We need the support in getting some key infrastructure repaired, such as culverts, bridge and jetties. And also there's a lack of public toilets, which is also an issue. So for us, there's a cost of around $250 every time we want to bring a class out into the field for some field work. We will assist with fund sourcing, volunteer labour and contractual efficiencies where we can, but timely pro bono technical support from staff to help spec-ing cost infrastructure projects would be very useful. Also some advice on signage.
Just as a quick aside, we work very closely with Linda Burns and the Parks Visitor Experience team, and I can't praise that team enough for the advice that they give. However, they're only technically able to give that advice on projects on council land. In order to get thematic consistency when we're putting signs on Lynn's land, it would be very useful if we could still get advice from her for those projects as well. So just as an aside, thank you.
Support on consenting would also be very useful, and perhaps even in some cases the waiving of consenting fees, and this would go a long way to supporting our work. We need support with riparian weed management along the waterways, so especially up the Avon Corridor, yellow flag iris is a big issue, one which we're looking to target. And we need some support through the budget in this year's annual plan. We think there needs to be a review of the application of the park ranger service in the corridor. In the past for Anzac Drive, it was switched from regional to urban parks team, and it is more closely aligned with the regional priorities and service levels and will become increasingly so. There is a need for an agency to take strategic oversight of activation of the Otakaro Avon River Corridor, at least in the interim. And at present, there's a vacuum there, and it will become even more apparent as Regenerate Christchurch evacuates from the space. Finally, we do come with some solutions though. A new program which we are trialling this year called electrothermal weed management. It uses electricity to systematically kill weeds without the use of toxic chemicals such as glyphosate. Hot Grass Limited in Tauranga has the only machine in New Zealand which we are bringing down to Christchurch. And through the help of the Innovation and Sustainability Fund, we'll use this to scientifically trial it in the red zone as well as other regions in Christchurch as a potential use for the future to move away from herbicides and have more effective long-term use. So by working together with community, iwi, council, universities and schools, we can turn the Otakaro Avon River Corridor into a stunning metropolitan asset that evolves and unfolds over time, but we do need your strong support to do so. We need staff to stop saying, oh no, that's the red zone, we can't touch that, we have to keep our hands off. And we need more of an approach of, oh, you are activating the corridor. That's a priority focus for us. How can we help? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. That's it's a tremendous presentation, and you know, I mean, we'll take that away and certainly give some of the issues some thought. I mean, I've kind of, you know, I think it's a very good concept to shift from the transition to the evolutionary. I think that's a fantastic model and a fantastic way to think. So, thank you. Food for thought.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Cheers.